If you own a business, you need to hustle, 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 right? This is the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, and we've got business conversations for the Kawartha commute. I'm Brian Rump from U Group.
And I'm Matt Garrity from Matt AG Digital.
All right, so Matty G, you're all about the hustle, right?
Yeah, everyone, Brian is laughing at me right now because he knows I'm not maybe anti-hustle. I think I work hard, but I am not about hustling. I'm not about working 20 hours a day, 12 hours a day. I didn't want to say this because I'm often embarrassed to say I barely work 8 hours a day. I barely work 40 hours a week as a business owner. It's not something
I think that's good to talk about and good to bring up. And that's why we're here, right? Business conversations, Kawartha commute. I think we have to get these, issues out and talk about them because there's a general impression that if
Yep.
you want to own a business, you have to hustle and you have to work hard. And I think locally, there's also a layer to that, which is you own a small business, you have to work so much harder than everyone else, but you also shouldn't make any money or any profit
That's
either,
crazy.
which is kind of insane. And one of the sort of maybe issues that I want to fight against and try to make sure people are working and their businesses making them a living without burning them out.
Yeah.
So where do you think hustle culture comes from?
It's a good question because also like you mentioned there, there's a notion that we have to work really hard and hustle as business owners, which is true. But what we're talking about, what I think about with hustle culture is the idea that we are working 24/7, 365, if that's even still something people say, or the idea that, yeah, we're working 12-hour days, 18-hour days, 20-hour days, or something like that. I grabbed a definition before we started because I did think this was interesting to clarify. But hustle culture and this whole idea that I kind of mentioned, it's about, quote, work is done in the office, outside the office, at home, at coffee shops, anywhere. It's like you're constantly working, and that's fine if you're into that. That's fine if you're a quote unquote workaholic, but also the idea that you have to be doing that as a small business owner, I strongly disagree with.
Yeah, so I think that's good thing to talk about. I think there's some influencers in the sort of business entrepreneur world as well that
Yep.
I don't follow. I think of Tony Robbins or Gary Vanderchuk or
Sure.
whatever you
Elon
pronounce his
Musk.
name, Gary V.
Yeah.
It's all about you got to get out there and you got to hustle and you have to have passion. And yesterday I was listening to a thing by somebody I follow, and he was joking about business coaches that are bad business coaches are more like cheerleaders, and they're always you have to have passion, you have to set goals, and you just have to hustle. And that's not what it should be like, because it's not sustainable as a business. It's not sustainable in terms of your own life as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of examples, and I've met a lot of people who they want to be in business and they work so hard that they end up divorced and their kids don't see them
Yeah.
very often. And, you know, in my mind, that's not a fun way to live life.
No, and me neither. And I say this to every budding entrepreneur when I talk to them and I try to mentor them. It's the first thing I tell them to consider beyond anything else, beyond get your elevator pitch on or figure out what's unique about you. The most important thing you need to think about as a budding new entrepreneur is what type of business owner do you want to be? Do you want to
Yeah.
be the one that works 12 hours a day? Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you're into.
Yeah.
Or
And
do you
some
want to
people
be,
just, wired to work.
yeah.
And, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think, there's no hard and set rules, but, you know, um,
Yeah.
sorry, I cut you off
No
there.
worries. No, you need to decide, do you want to be that person that's, like we've said, hustling? or did you get into business for other reasons? And what are those reasons? A
Yeah.
big reason for me was the ability to be able to spend more time with my kids. I've got two little boys that are 3 and 5 right now, and the ability to just be able to drop stuff as I needed. I've
Yeah.
been really fortunate to work at a couple places that were really open to that in general, but still being able to be fully control of your schedule, which is sometimes that's a challenge too, but just the ability to be like, spend more time with my kids. And that doesn't mean now working 10 hours a day. It doesn't mean working even 10 hours a day or something like that. It's like
Yeah.
figuring out what I really want from this business and being a business owner.
Yeah, so it's about, and I think building the life you want. And I think,
Yeah.
a really good first step that most people don't do or they don't step back and do enough. And it's something I try to help people with is having that life plan and those goals of that why you're doing this. And learning how to balance that with your chosen business. I do think that, you know, it depends on your business. And there are people who are wired to like wake up in the morning and they just want to work all day and do stuff. And for them, you have to look at what's the balance. So maybe you love to do stuff and you love to be busy, but building in time where you're with your kids or your family, or you're doing something that's not necessarily your business,
Yeah.
for set amounts of time. um, there's also consideration of seasonal businesses. So I know, if you're a business where in the summertime you need to take advantage of
Mm.
every hour of um, good weather, then you can do that.
Yeah.
And you can set that up. I had a business I worked with once who had like a seasonal cottage resort type business, and their family lived there. And the family was like, it's a family business. From May till October, we work every day, but they had rules in place about, every day from like noon till 3 p.m., they were out on their boat enjoying their, life. They didn't think about the business. And that was like strict boundaries for them because they knew every day, they were working. There's always something to do, but they had to take that time out for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like really into this, and I started getting into this a couple months ago specifically. Like, I've been paying a bit more attention to my own mental and physical health and wellness for the last year and a couple months. But I started to get more into the idea of rest when I actually heard LeBron James talking about this, because
Okay.
we hear so much, like you were about to rattle off like some famous names, and you did actually, of like famous people that are like hustlers and they're working 20 hours a day. We hear that all the time. We don't hear enough about the people that actually put a focus on rest and in sleep, for instance. So I'm no genius, but I did like a quick bit of Googling, so this has to be accurate as well. But like people
Yeah.
that were big into like sleeping 8+ hours a day: Einstein, Beethoven, Darwin, Da Vinci. And LeBron James was the first one that I became aware of. And when I started listening to him through like a Calm masterclass course, that's when it kind of hit me. Like, arguably one of the best basketball players ever, maybe one of the best athletes ever. Um, and he treats sleep like any other appointment or task. So he actually
Yeah.
schedules sleep into his schedule, and he insists that he gets 8 hours of sleep every single day. So just like he gets up and he's like so regimented and he's got like workout scheduled and breakfast and travel and training and games, like he actually has his 8 hours blocked off in his calendar for sleep. And that's when it started to hit me. And I'm like, if this guy that's so incredible at what he does puts such a value on rest and sleep, like, why aren't I doing that?
Yeah. And that's, I think there's a book, I'm drawing a blank on the title, by Ariana Huffington,
Mm,
the Huffington Post from a few years ago. And it was big on, sleep as well. And like, against the hustle culture, against, to block out that time and sleep. And that's a big one as well. One of the influencers I follow is Dan Sullivan, who has a business called Strategic Coach for entrepreneurs. It's probably the leading worldwide program for real high level entrepreneurs. And one of the things that they talk about is free days, focus days, and flex days.
Yeah.
And he's somebody who's in his late 70s now. He does not plan to retire. He loves what he does. But free days are days where, it's a 24-hour period where you do not do any sort of work. You don't look at your phone, you don't check your email, you don't do any of that. And he has 22 weeks of free days every year. And the first thing when you join that program is you start tracking them, and wherever you're at, you double them. So it's just about forcing in days that are completely free, because if you don't have that, you don't get to recharge, you don't get to you know think about your business either. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to grow if you're in hustle and survival mode all the time. You can't sit back and think about the next step. If you're a creative and you're doing things a bit differently, like, you can't do that stuff unless you have the time to even think about that. And even then, some of that thinking on the business, that's more of a flex day thing. So, but you need to have the free days to have the mental capacity to do that. So, I do some business coaching with different businesses, and I've put in some like hard, fast rules with not working every day or having
Mm-hmm.
days where you just don't work. So it's not about, okay, I'm coaching you now, like, let's hustle, hustle, hustle and do more, do more, do more. It's about, you need to find ways to do less, and you free up time in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think now it's about like finding a way to do more great work while still actually focusing on rest. And like it's not about being lazy,
No, no.
although
And we have to, I think, really look at that, because I think as a society we've been trained that your value is sometimes in how hard you're working, and that if you're not working, you're somehow lazy, but it's
yeah,
not about being lazy.
I think laziness is a part of everyone's life and it should be a way to build efficiencies like and it's a way maybe in a form of innovation. Like I don't know anything about innovation, but like I know you know a lot about it and might not want to take too much of this conversation about that, but like the best inventions in the world product service wise probably came from a sense of laziness and like we
Oh,
don't want
it's
to do
all,
something as hard as we've been doing it or in a certain way we want to make it easier for ourselves, right?
yeah, every innovation is an extension of the human body in some
That's
way, and
interesting.
it is about bringing that down. And I'm going to blow your mind here with this nugget, but I would argue that it's lazier not to take free time. So some people are wired to just work and hustle and go, and they have to work really hard to carve out that time for sleep.
Yeah.
So it's lazy to not do it. So, like LeBron James, as an example, and a lot of athletes, there's so much science in like rest and like good rest. It's
110.
hard for them to sit and like have a full rest day where you don't do much. And that's not lazy at all. That's like hard. Like, if you're someone who's wired and you don't like to sit still and you're going, like, you need to sort of work hard at your rest, or work hard at creating those boundaries for sleep.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. And like rest doesn't mean to like you're just going to take a whole day off and sleep. Maybe it's you want to have a nap that day. You could do exercise, which is actually a form of rest, to be honest with you.
yeah,
You could read a book. You could meditate, practice mindfulness, spend time doing something you like doing.
Yeah, it could just be something different. Like if you have a hobby, I know people who are excellent like woodworkers and they just
Yeah.
love being in a shop and woodworking. So if you're owning a business, you might need that time to completely change gears and, work on something else. So everyone's going to find their own thing. But I guess, you can't just be in your business all the time. Um, I think some dangers to your business for that is if you have employees, it makes it also easy for the employees to become dependent on you.
Hmm.
You end up making maybe too many decisions. You're not trying to systemize things or engage, experts. I work in for Greg Evans Accounting, and we have a bookkeeping service. And one of the things that it's biased, but most business owners should not be doing bookkeeping. They might be doing some tracking of stuff coming in and out, but there's a lot of other tasks around that they'll sort of hustle through, and they'll spend their Saturday night doing all their books. But you shouldn't be doing that. You should be finding ways to offload that stuff so you could just focus on exactly what you're best at.
Yes.
And that's a constant way of systemizing things, freeing up your time. And it's not about being an absentee business owner where you're away, and you don't have to do anything in the business. Some people do that, but um, you know it's about setting that business up, and it's the spin-off of that is it's going to be better and make you more and more successful. So a lot of the most successful people I know, they end up spending less and less time in their business, but what they do is so high quality that it works really well.
Absolutely. Like if you're a small business owner and you're spending 4 extra hours a day on top of your 8 to 10 hour workday doing stuff that you're not adding value to, like administration and returning emails and legal stuff and bookkeeping, what are you really doing? Like you're not providing value there. Like you're the expert at what you do. Let other people be the expert at what they do. And that hit me hard because I literally say that on every single sales call I have. And
Yeah.
back in January or February, I was putting my tax stuff together and it took me like 4 to 8 hours, 4 hours at a minimum. And I just kept thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Why did I not have a bookkeeper this entire year? That this would have been done by somebody else in a fraction of the amount of time. And now I've lost, if you want to think of it in dollars, I've lost money
Oh yeah.
spending my time doing this instead of,
Opportunity costs
yeah,
are
of like,
huge,
yeah,
right?
selling my business, growing my business, working for the people that I'm already working with and like
Yeah.
putting good work in there. And I just was like, that's when I reached out to you guys at Greg Evans Professional Corp, where I was like, I just need this taken care of by someone. And like, is it rocket science? No, I don't think marketing is rocket science either. So that's not meant to be anything
Yeah.
offensive. But it's like, you guys are the pros at what you do, and you need to handle that for me. And so I can handle all my own business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that's exactly the same theme we want for every business owner to know, focus on mining their own gold. I know that's a bit of a cliche sometimes or maybe a buzzword, but
You're talking Bitcoin?
Bitcoin, yeah, we could do a whole other thing on Bitcoin, but that's um, focus on yourself. It's not all about the hustle. Find balance, and there's people out there that can help you build a great business with that balance. One thing I just wanted to touch on here before our Kawartha commute's done is something I was reading about the other day, which is the ridiculous trend that happens with hustle culture of manufacturing struggle. So it's okay to be comfortable in your business. Manufacturing struggle is things like, people who will force themselves to like wake up early or if they don't, maybe they're not a morning person, but they force themselves to wake up early. They force themselves to do exercise or something that they don't want to do. They force themselves to take cold showers because there's people who think, oh, cold showers are healthier, better.
I just read
Um,
about that last night, and it is kind of interesting. But go on, the
yeah,
cold shower thing.
yeah. So, but there's, you got to be careful. If it's your thing and you like it, it's okay. But you don't have to manufacture struggle in your life or manufacture that hustle to feel that you're successful. So we can make you
Yeah,
successful and help you be successful within a good balance, a good lifestyle.
I hear that all the time, and it actually that drives me crazy. Like, I'm all for people doing whatever they want, like whatever is comfortable to them. I'm respectful of everyone's opinion. I love conversation. However, when I hear someone complaining that they worked 12 hours a day, 16 hours, and they're so tired and they can't keep up with that, they can't keep up with this, and I'm like,
It's a choice.
yeah, it's a choice. And honestly, the first thing that goes through my mind, this goes back to the days of like all of my friends being in like college and university, and they were studying like hours upon hours and all this kind of stuff. The first thing that goes through my mind when people are like, oh, I worked like 16 hours today, I'm like, are you good at what you do? How did it take you so long to do what
Yeah.
you needed to do? Is actually the first thing I consider. Is like, maybe you're not made out for this.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point as well. Like you have to learn to, or you're not listening to people who are
Hmm.
helping, or you're procrastinating stuff. And that's where, again, it's harder. And you got to take, if you're lazy, it's easy to put 16 hours in
Yeah.
to like finish everything. But what if you tried to do all that in 7, right? And you probably can. And there's probably a way to do it. And sometimes that's, battling ourselves a little bit and figuring that stuff out. You're probably not going to get to the point where you can work 0 hours a week ever,
No.
right? Like there's a lot of, we can
The 4 hour
unpack
work
that.
week.
No one really does that. But there's things you could do to work a reasonable amount. And yeah, you don't have to, you know, brag or tie your value into how tired you are
Hmm.
and how much you work.
And we're in an age of like optimal efficiencies and technology and services. Like, if there are ways for you to work less,
Oh
regardless,
yeah.
whether it's a hiring someone, a contractor, someone full-time, part-time, or there's services out there,
Yeah.
like virtual services. There's different technology for. I will challenge everyone that if they wanted to send us a question like, well, how do I not do this as long?
Yeah.
I will find a solution for you. And that is a challenge to anyone that ever listens to this and reaches out to us.
Awesome. That sounds like a good challenge. And I think leaving it off with that sounds like an episode to me. Uh, thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to talk more about this or you want to challenge us to help you hustle less, we would love to do it. So reach out and we will set that up.